My name's Lewis.
My name is Daniel Kwan, and this is The Scarlet Abyss connected to the Never Stand by the Hero, Chapter 10.
Okay, so for the first slide, we have the major principles of How to Read Literature like a Professor, Chapter 10. So we learn that the surrogate for the protagonist in this piece seemingly always gets killed as a result of some occurrence in a novel. However, this isn't a really coincidence, as nothing in literature is, and it serves a purpose in the development of the character in order to open up all sorts of new possibilities in the story or plot, and the advancement of the character. In other words, Foster discovered this pattern in literature where the death of the secondary character or the surrogate serves a purpose, whether it be to motivate or change the character or persona of the protagonist, or to advance the story or the plot. The principle of the chapter represents the motif in literature that the author forms an occurrence, such an event, whether it seems like an accident or not, and he does it in purpose in order to advance the growth of the character. This leads into the other major principle of the chapter, round versus flat characters, which serves the same general purpose as the death of a surrogate, and how it affects the protagonist and the storyline.
Continuing on with the major principles of Chapter 10, Never Stand by the Hero and How to Read Literature Like a Professor are also focused on the distinction between flat and round characters. The chapter defines flat characters as those that have a simplistic role to the storyline and are not a major focus of the plot. They are not complex and do not grow as the story progresses. In contradiction to flat characters, round characters are complex and capable of growth. The round characters are those that the author wishes to highlight and point major focus towards. In How to Read Literature Like a Pro, Foster portrays the idea that flat characters seem to die as they progress alongside the round characters. Foster describes this common theme as a method to allow for the growth of major characters. Round characters may grow in response to the death of non-significant figures in the story to not only advance their own complexities, but to also advance the plot and storyline. To connect the Scarlet Abyss and How to Read Literature Like a Pro, the Scarlet Abyss showcases the death of a flat character in order to advance a round character. Although Doodle is progressing through change, increasing complexities were evidently bound to halt. We can see this as the story expresses, quote, Daddy had the carpenter build a little coffin, and when he was 3 months old, Mama and Daddy named him William Armstrong. Such a name sounds good for only on the tombstone. This quote showcases the idea that Doodle's death was inevitable, something that highlights the features of a flat character as complexities would not grow. Following the major concepts expressed by Foster in How to Read Literature Like a Pro, round characters are present in the storyline and grows out of misfortunes of the flat characters. The narrator grows in the character and he becomes more loving to his brother and expresses changes in the character in response to the death of the flat character. The changes to the narrator and focus of the author towards him highlight himself as a round character.
Okay, for the second part of the connections between the Scarlet Abyss and How to Read Literature Like a Professor, we see at the beginning of the Scarlet Abyss that the protagonist, the bigger brother of the story, wished for Doodle to die. We can infer this because of the amount of times he told Doodle about his coffin, and how everybody expected him to die when he was born, due to his disease, where he can't move his legs. Quote, one day I took him up to the barn loft and showed him his casket, telling him how we all had believed he would die. We now know that Doodle was a flat character because of the lack of growth in his persona. However, despite him learning how to walk, he was indeed a flat character, and we see later that the growth of the bigger brother, the protagonist, he was indeed the round character. Near the end of the story, once Doodle dies, we see the change in his persona of the protagonist and how he's devastated by his death. I quote, his little legs, bent sharply at the knees, had never before seemed so fragile, so thin. I began to weep, and the tear-blurred vision in red before me looked very familiar. This death of Doodle therefore solely plays a role to change the persona of the protagonist, or the bigger brother, who was indeed the round character, and he turned to a loving and caring brother as opposed to one who only cares about his pride. And here we see some illustrations of the PowerPoint that we put here.